What's up? How we doing? We doing okay? You know what? Let's try this again. We need some energy in the room. I'm stoked that you're here. I believe God's got something for us. So let's do that again. What's up, everybody? How we doing tonight? There we go. Let's go. Hey, if I haven't got the chance to meet you, my name is Will. I'm not normally the one standing here. If you are brand new, welcome. We're glad you're here. Maybe this is like your third week. You've been coming since one big party. We're glad that you're here hanging out with us. Who's ready to eat a bunch of food next week at Groupsgiving? There you go. A few people. Yeah. It's like a test run. You know, you got to expand that stomach. Thanksgiving is coming up. It's great. Winter's here. You got to get some layers of food and. It's cold outside. All right, there we go. That's enough jokes about that. Can't wait to see you there. Sign up for Movement. If you have not signed up, it is our student conference. Movement, it is going to blow your mind. I've been talking with some of the speakers. Today, it's going to be an amazing time for you, not to just be a part of a cool experience, but to grow closer to God in your purpose. Grow closer to God and more in your purpose that He has for your life. So sign up for Movement. Also, camp registration is open, not over. Woo-hoo-hoo. Open, and for both, there's already over 100 people signed up for both of those. So we are in the second week of a series called Emotions. Where's my emotional people? Yeah, my feelers out there. How about dudes? Dudes, who's a feeler out there? Would you admit I'm a feeler? Yeah, okay. There we go. Yes, I'm a feeler. I like it. You know the videos that really get me? That like get some I don't cry. The guys don't cry. But tears in my eyes, right, is when I see like the military person come home and their family sees them and they're like, they embrace them like, oh my gosh. Or when little babies, they get their they haven't had glasses, they put glasses on and they can see their mom and dad for the first time. I'm like, oh my God, it's so sweet. Probably get the feels because I want a baby right now, but I have a wife, so it's okay. Working on it. So emotions, week 2 of emotions. Last week, we talked a lot about truth and how, like, the feelings, like, we feel a certain way, but what is true in life. Today, we're talking about conflict. Who would say, and you're probably not going to raise your hand if this is you because you're, like, nervous and your fight or flight is, like, fly the heck out of there. Who would say, when it comes to, like, emotions or conflict or feeling something, you tend to lean towards fight? Fight. Where's my fighters? You tend to lean towards fight. A few people, okay? Which would mean how many people are flight? You want to get the heck out of there? A bunch of people? Yeah, okay, wow, a lot of people fly, like, okay, maybe online, you too? A lot of people? We'll see. I want to do this. We're going to walk through some conflict scenarios because we all deal with conflict, and then maybe you have felt this, but we need some, like, participation. We're going to practice with a couple questions. So if you resonate, if you kind of feel, you're like, yeah, I've been there before, I've had conflict like that before, then I need you to give a good old Texan loud from your abdomen, yes, okay? So we're going to practice here on the count of 3. Just yell yes at me. 1, 2, 3. There we go. Okay, so now before we get to the scenarios, I have a couple test questions. Again, we're practicing this, crowd participation here. Here's the first one. Do you wish that you could eat Chick-fil-A on Sundays? Oh, whoa, your voice is changing. You're a young man. That's great. All right, now how about this one? Have you listened to the new Taylor Swift album? Wow, I have not either. I have not listened to it, but man, she has quite the following. Okay, so here's the scenarios, okay, and now do this with me, okay? If you resonate with this, we'll go to the next one. Have you ever gotten into a fight with a sibling? Okay, there we go, a lot of people. Next one. Hassa! There we go. Have you ever disagreed with your parents about house rules? Very strong yes, very strong yes. Next one. Have you ever had a friend treat you poorly? Okay, there we go. Next one. Has a friend ever gossiped about you? A lot of girls on that one. All right, next. Has a friend ever excluded you? Don't you hate that one? That might be the worst one. You like see them doing something, or you're like, hey, where were y'all? And they're like, oh, last night was awesome. You're like, wait, why didn't you like text me? Okay. Okay, next one. Have you ever hurt someone's feelings? Wow. Let's try this again. Be honest with you. Even accidentally. Okay, let's say this, even accidentally, maybe. Have you ever hurt someone's feelings? Okay, next one. Have you ever emotionally overreacted? Y'all saying no are liars. Okay, you're emotionally overacting right now, or overreacting. All right, next one. Next one. Have you ever been silent to avoid a fight, even though you really felt like you needed to say something? A lot of people, yeah. Yeah, you're like, I feel like I should say something, but I don't want to get in a fight. Let's just move on. All right, next question. Have you ever shut down with your parents so that they would stop talking to you about the thing already? Yeah, okay. Wow, not as many as I thought. Maybe you're getting some question fatigue here. All right, next one. Do you love your small group leader even when they lovingly tell you a hard truth? Yes. Hey, can we give it up for all of our small group leaders in the room? Do you love your small group leader? I think one of the best things for your small group leader to be in your life for is to tell you something that it qualifies as conflict because it's a hard truth and it's kind of, it's uncomfortable to stay. But that's also part of the reason that they're here, is to help you along the way, to work with you on conflict, to help make you more self-aware sometimes, because we're all not self-aware at times. We are talking about this conflict. We're talking about what do we do with conflict. In fact, as Christ followers, we can't just say, what do we do with conflict? We have to add Christ into it, because you as a Christ follower, if you've been baptized, what that is saying is a public way of saying to the world, everyone judge me based off of my actions. That's what baptism is. That you don't get to heaven because of baptism. You are already saved, and now you're baptized, and now you hold God's reputation in your actions. The way that you react to conflict could be the way that someone else perceives God. Like, the way that we deal with conflict is such a big deal. Many of you, your parents aren't Christ followers. And the way that you interact with them at home, and it's a heavy weight, the way that you interact with them at home, they will see, they will wonder, they will think, they will see, is church making a difference? Which really means, is God making a difference in their life or not? Like, conflict and how we navigate it is such a big deal for us as Christ followers. So here's the question, and write down this question, think about this question, pray about this question. It is simply this: how do I navigate conflicts in a God-honoring way? How do I navigate conflict? Conflicts of any kinds, of many kinds, of all kinds, in a God-honoring way. Not just like, I'm going to fight more, I usually avoid, but I'm just going to get in there and tell them how it is, you know? You ever, like, maybe you have people in your life like this that is like, I'm just honest. And really, you're like, you're rude, you know? Like, no, it's how do we manage, how do we navigate conflict in a God-honoring way? Jesus talked about this. In fact, the way that Jesus taught about this, it was like shocking. It was a perspective-shifting way of thinking about conflict. And if you have your paper Bibles, we'll be in Matthew 7, verse 5. He's talking about conflict by saying this: so if you are presenting a sacrifice at the altar in the temple. Now, we see this when we say church, and many of you is like 5 minutes away. 5-10 minutes away, you got to church. This is like a journey for most people. For people that he was teaching, is saying if you travel a long way, it took you over a day to get to the temple. And you're in the temple, about to sacrifice to God. You're going there to honor God, to get right with God. You're going there to present a sacrifice to God. And you suddenly remember that someone has something against you, okay? Again, you're way far away. Imagine you drove for 12 hours to a temple, to a church, to a something. It's far away. Took you a long time, and you bought something that would have cost you a lot of money to give to God, okay? So scenario set up, context set up, and then all of a sudden you remember, oh, I've been harboring a lot of unforgiveness because they did fill in the blank. Because, oh man, that's right. I made this whole big fight. I gossiped, I backstabbed, I excluded them. I didn't mean to hurt their feelings, but man, I know their feelings are hurt, but they better just deal with it. I feel like I need to do something. All of a sudden, you remember that someone has something against you. And he goes on, he says this: leave your sacrifice there at the altar. Again, picture, you came all this way to honor God. And Jesus says, okay, you're there to honor God. It took you a long time. You bought something to give to God as a sacrifice that cost you a lot of money. Place it on the ground and drive back 12 hours. You're like, what? Right? Leave your sacrifice at the altar. He doesn't say, hey, yeah, go in there and do the whole thing. You went so far. You went so far. Go in there, do the sacrifice, talk with the priest, get him to splatter the thing. Okay, and then go ahead and go back. No, he says, leave your sacrifice there at the altar. Then, and then he goes on, then go and be reconciled to that person. He says, traveled all this way, took me a long time. This is expensive. I'm supposed to leave it here. Nobody steal this. This is my sacrifice. Nobody steal this. I'll be back in 2 days because we don't have cars and it takes me forever. Leave it here. Go back. Reconcile. Do what you can to reconcile to that person. Then, goes on, then come and offer your sacrifice to God. You know what Jesus is saying here? Be right with people. You know how when Jesus left, he said, I got one rule. Treat people like I treat you. Love people. That'll be evidence that I exist. Right? We are image bearers of God's reputation. People say, oh, there's not a loving God. You know what drives me crazy? Mormons so often are better at being Christians. They have a better reputation than Christians because they are nicer people. Because they are so nice to be able to drop anything, to do anything. And are they imperfect? Absolutely. We're all imperfect. But they think that getting to heaven, they think being reconciled with God depends on what they do. And so they have this big emphasis on what they do. And what trap we can fall into as Christ followers is what we know is that we're not saved by what we do. We're saved by what Jesus did. But then sometimes we're like, I'm saved by what Jesus did. We lay back in a recliner, kick the feet up, and we're like, I don't have to do anything differently. Jesus is saying, you want to be right with God? You do everything in your power to be right with people and then come back and interact with me again. Now, this is an exaggeration to make a point. The literary and like the storytelling, he's like exaggerating. You know, if you say, I got a ton of homework, does your homework weigh 2,000 pounds? No, it doesn't. It's a literary device. It's about, man, I'm going to exaggerate to make a point. I have a lot of homework. Jesus is making a point to say we need to go above and beyond, to do our part to be right with people. How do you navigate conflicts in a God-honoring way? We've got 3 ways. Number 1, write this down. Number 1, humility. Humility. That's it. Number 1. There you go. All right, blessed to be on it. No, here's a verse. It says this, a verse that you've heard before, Matthew 7:5. You hypocrite. Nobody wants to feel like a hypocrite. You hypocrite. First, someone say first. First, take the log. You know what, let's do it again. You hypocrite. First, take the log out of your own eye, and then you will see clearly to take the speck out of your brother's eyes. What this is not saying is don't take the speck out of the other person's eye. What this is saying is deal with your stuff first. Deal with you first. Recognize, I could be wrong here. Maybe this is a bad perspective. Maybe my parents have that rule because there's something I don't know. Approach conflict with humility. If you're like, I don't understand, you know what that should tell you? Is that there's something that you don't understand. I don't understand why they would Well, let's talk about it, because there's something that you don't understand. And am I saying that other people's actions are always right and they trump you and whatever? No, I'm saying first, when you come into a conversation, first, take the log out of your own eye. Point it inward. I'm gonna humbly walk in. And number 2, I'm gonna own my part. I'm gonna walk into this conversation hands open and say, there might be something I don't know. There might be something with me. I might be the cause of this. There might be something before this. There's a reason for this. I'm not really sure. I'm walking in humble with it, and I'm going to own my part. Romans, Paul, when writing about conflict, he says this, Romans 12, repay no one evil for evil, but give thought to do what is honorable in the sight of all, if possible. Now this is big. If possible, so far as it depends on you, live peaceably with all. He's saying, if you can do your part to be at peace, that doesn't mean be a doormat for people to walk all over. That's not what that means. He's saying, do everything that you can if it's within your power. There's people in my past that I did what I could. I did everything that I could to reconcile the relationship, to solve the conflict, and it wasn't dependent on me at that point. I walked in, hopefully, with humility. Not always, because I'm not great, or not perfect with it at all. I can be a little aggressive. I'm like, let's fight. I want to smooth it out, As far as it depends on you, have you done your part? Have you done your part? And when you do your part, after you approach the conversation with humility and you do your part, you own what you can own. Do you then, number 3, forgive? Do you harbor it against them? Forgiving doesn't mean forgetting. In fact, as human beings, that's kind of impossible. Forgiving, forget. That's what God does to our sin. It's amazing. Think about that. We could do something that God is like, I refuse to do. God does not remember. But as human beings in an imperfect world, we're like, I forgive you, but, Do we forgive? And forgiveness is a little simple. It's kind of like this. If your hand is clenched and you're angry and you're frustrated, after you talk about it, after you own your part about it, do you walk away and you're still like this? You're still I forgive you. See ya. Yeah. All right, do you own your part and do you say, okay, I did what I could. I'm going to probably feel this for a little while, but I'm going to give God the rest. A long time ago, Pastor John, he was talking about generosity. He said, he was talking about greed and generosity. He said the only way to get rid of greed is to give it away. Do you know the only way in your life to get rid of anger is to give it away? I'm not saying put it on somebody. I'm saying you give it to God. You forgive that person, and God works inside of you over time to not harbor anger, to not harbor resentment. And there's lines of how much do you trust them with, fill in the blank. I'm not saying you forgive and then you always trust. Those are different things. Sometimes, not always, but sometimes people have to earn your trust. Sometimes people cross a line that's too far. And can you humbly talk to them about it? Can you own your part of it? Yes. And can you forgive them and then walk away from the relationship? At times, yeah. But when we do that, are we doing that in the most God-honoring way that's possible? Forgive. As Christ followers, again, if you're not a Christ follower, if you do these 3 things, your conflict in life, it will be a heck of a lot better. As Christ followers, forgiveness is not an option for us. We find another verse. God's word talks about forgiveness. And put that last verse up. Did I put that in? I think I put that in. Yeah, Colossians 3. Bearing with one another, and if one has a complaint against another, forgiving each other, not as they deserve. Not forgiving them because they've earned it. Forgiving them as the Lord has forgiven you. Forgiven me. As God forgives us, we must. It's not an option. We must forgive others. How much do you forgive? We talked about forgiveness just a handful of weeks ago, if you were here, the week before One Big Party. And we asked the question, who in your life, right? Who out there, who comes to your mind that you need to forgive? And to this point, you haven't done anything with that yet. To this point, you're like, man, I know I've got issues with this person, but whatever. I'm just not going to think about it. I'm not going to talk about it. Man, pain unresolved does not go away. It festers and it grows. Conflict, if we don't deal with it, it festers, it grows, it causes other conflict. Do we deal with conflict? Do we deal with conflict in a God-honoring way? There's this weird phenomenon that's starting to happen here at Hope Fellowship. How many of you drive? A lot of drivers? A lot of you, okay. How many of your parents drive and come to Hope? A lot of people? Okay. There's a strange thing happening here at Hope. 5 years ago, you used to see Hope stickers everywhere on cars, everywhere. Every staff member here at Hope, we all had Hope stickers, okay? And then there was a staff member who used to be here, moved to a different church, but man, that person emphasized, put a Hope sticker on your car, Hope sticker on your car. When that person left, people stopped putting Hope stickers on their cars. Staff members stopped putting Hope stickers on their car. You know why? And I've asked them, and I know why. You know why? Come on, guess. What do you think? Because of how they drive. Like, oh, no, I don't, like, the way I drive, I speed. I'm like, yeah, get over. You're in the fast lane. You know, I'm on 380, and my vein is popping out of my neck and my forehead, right? You know? People stop putting Hope stickers on their cars because of the way they drive. You know what's crazy about that? Why don't we just change the way we drive? It's like, no, I needed to get somewhere. Leave earlier, right? And I'm talking to myself too. I have a Hope sticker on my car because I'm like, it keeps me accountable. It does. And I'm not always the best driver. And I feel anger. I do. I drive literally on 380 every single day of my life. And I pray to God every time. No, I don't. I should. But man, I was at the Frisco West campus, and a student came up to me, and he said, hey, I got a funny story about you. I'm like, okay. We've never hung out. I know your name is Zeke. That's all I know, okay? And he said, I got a funny story. I was driving on 380, and the first thought was, uh-oh. And he said, I was driving on 380, and I saw a car with a Hope sticker on it. It's like, oh, no. He said, I saw that car with the Hope sticker get cut off. I was like, oh, that was probably me. And I said, it was me, wasn't it? He goes, yeah. I said, what did I do? I was like, what did you see me do? He said, well, I had to pull up to see what this car was doing that just got cut off. It was bad traffic. And I look over, and it was you, and I was thinking, this guy's going to be angry. And I look, he said, I don't know what song you were singing, but you were smiling, and you were leaning back. I was like, thank God. Because I don't always react that way. But the Hope sticker on the back of my car, when I think about it, I'm like, oh, no, I probably shouldn't do that. Because then people are going to think about the church, you know? And people have posted stuff on our Facebook about someone should tell your people about driving. Because I see stickers everywhere. I'm never coming to this church. People have done that in the past. So I'm like, I don't want to be the reason that someone's angry at this church. As Christ followers, man, are we avoiding conflict? Are we avoiding it completely because we're like, I just can't deal with conflict. I'm just not going to put the hopes. I'm not going to put the sticker of Christ. I'm just going to get out of it because I can't manage it well. I don't do it well. Or can we work on how we have conflict with our parents in a God-honoring way? Can we better control our emotions so that humility overshadows what we feel? Can we walk into a conversation and own our piece of the pie to say, I'm not always perfect at this? And maybe there's something that's wrong. Maybe there's something I don't know. I know that how I said this could have come off as, and if that hurt, I'm so sorry. I'm the wrong for this. Could we own our part of it? And when we walk away from it, can we forgive? What if we forgave the way that our God forgives us? Can we be perfect with that? No. Can we be better? Absolutely. Let's take our emotions and overshadow them with work, because this takes work. I've worked very hard to be better at conflict, and I still don't always get it right. But I don't want to be driving on 380 and someone cut me off and get a bad taste in their mouth for church. As Christ followers, we can grow. You can grow. You can do this better. You can be a light through conflict. Because if you do, people will say, there's something different. There's something different. Let me pray for us. God, I pray that the conflict that all of us face on a daily basis, the conflict that we have in the hallways, the conflict that we have on our teams, the conflict that we may have at work, maybe at home with our sibling or our parents. God, we can't control how other people do things. We can't. But what we can control is how we do things. We can't always control how we feel about a situation, feel about what somebody said, feel about what somebody did. We can't always control that. But what we can do is we can take our emotions and we can submit them to you, Jesus. Jesus, you said to a massive group of people, if you've come to worship me, be right with each other, love each other, make sacrifices for each other. So God, guide us, grow us, challenge us as we grow in managing conflict in a God-honoring way. It's in your name we pray. Amen, Jesus.